what is it, right? Are we buying the plastic? Because if you look at the plastic, it doesn't make sense. Or are we buying points? I personally think that we're just buying points set by GW. Or they look at a box and like, okay, how much realistically would someone pay for this model?
So when I've gone and I've just applied the toothbrush to remove the paint, his staff just went and dropped into like 4 pieces.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it, that's the bit I need. You know?
It's like
that's what makes him a lord.
Yeah, exactly. Now he's just a luggage destroyer. I don't want this.
Yeah. Before 22, they just used to tell their investors they were putting the prices up, but didn't tell us.
The consumers.
Yeah.
Why do we need to know?
We don't care. We don't matter.
We don't matter, yeah. Hi everyone and welcome to the Warhammer podcast. We're your hosts, Jack
and Dan.
Today we're going to be talking about the recent price changing happening to the Games Workshop.
Yes. They've done it to us again.
You can see how depressed we went there. She was like, today we're going to be talking about prices.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not going to be a depressing podcast. I mean, obviously we're a little bit grumpy about it, as probably most of you are, but we're going to get into why they've done it. Is it justified? Let's look at some of the numbers. Are they price gouging us, or are they just keeping up with inflation?
Yeah.
And also, I guess we're going to look at, if the hobby is getting too expensive for you or more expensive, how can you mitigate against that? Yeah.
Like where can you go? Where else can you get your plastic crack from?
Cheap plastic crack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are the latest prices then?
Right. So they've just put a post out entitled "The 2024 Pricing Update," so no surprises there. And the Warhammer community website, and they announced prices will increase between 3 and 5% on most of its products, depending on the product line. However, they did say that there was a price freeze on Citadel paints, on White Dwarf magazine, and Black Library books. So basically, it's on the plastic and the codexes, and anything in Forge World is all going on.
I mean, obviously every year they always change, which we'll get into later, but they always change kind of what they change the price on. Yeah. But the plastic miniatures always tend to go up every year, don't they?
Yeah, and that's part of the issue, isn't it?
I think that's the main part of the hobby as well, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, it's how to make most of the money, and that's what we spend most of our money on.
Yep.
So I think. I mean, we were due some controversy in the hobby because it's been very calm and quiet for the past few weeks.
Oh, of course, yeah. We needed something to re-energize.
Something to complain about.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at how bad is this really? What is the history of price rises? What have they been up to, Jack? It's
just been on the up every single year, basically. Yeah. But I mean, since 2022, Games Workshop has probably announced price rises. So far, we've had in 2022, it was up 5% on plastic miniatures.
Yes.
And then 10% on terrain. That was wild.
When
that price went up by 10, but that's nothing to shy away from. I mean, 5 was crazy. 10 on terrain.
Yeah.
I mean,
that was it was bad.
It was that. I mean, how much terrain? Because obviously, if you look at tables nowadays in tournaments, how much terrain do you actually need?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a question is, the answer is a lot. You need a lot of terrain, basically. So that 10% was crazy. Books, resin models, 20% on metal.
Metal means went up 20%, which was
that's
mad.
A lot.
I mean, that was a lot to do with at the time with rises in metal prices, but overall, 10% on books, terrain, and resin was hurt, and 5% on minis hurt as well. Plastic,
really crazy.
But then
didn't stop.
They didn't stop. What did it do in 23?
23, 6% for plastic miniatures, more for resin models.
Wow. Right, okay.
Just doesn't stop. Now, I mean, I don't know what was happening around that time of year for the UK. I don't think there was much going on. I mean, I don't remember much really. I think there was the toilet paper pandemic. Was happening around that time of year. So but again, 2024. Still not letting up. Let's get the GW train going. 5% on models this year, it looks like.
So on plastic minis, we've had 5% in 22, 6% in 23, and another 5% in this year. That's a lot.
It's just so much. So before 2022, they were mentioned price increases in the annual reports, averaging out about 3% per year. This is according to the US-based tabletop industry publication.
Yeah, ICV2 is a good publication, and they pointed this out. That so props to them. They at least they're being honest with us now. But in the past, before 22, they just used to tell their investors they were putting the prices up, but didn't tell us.
The consumers. Why do we need to know?
We don't care. We don't matter.
We don't matter. Yeah.
It's disappointing, and as we're
so
getting
sad.
Well, one of the reasons why is I looked into the as you know I like my information from the city, and I've looked into the history of the GW sales and profits a little bit. And from 2017 to 2023, which is the period we're talking about there in price rises, GW tripled its turnover pretty much, like just under trebled it. So trebled sales. So in 2017, sales were just over 158 million, and by 2023 they were just under 471 million.
So is that
that's in
profit?
pounds? No, that's your total sales.
Total sales.
Yes. So your profit-wise, your average gross profit margin during that period is around 68%. So that what they mean is like basically for every pound you spent, 68 pence was profit.
Of course, after tax and NI.
Yeah, then so once everything else has come off that, you're left with something called your operating profit, and that's still more than quadrupled during that period. So they trebled turnover and quadrupled profits.
Crazy.
So it went from 38.3 million in 2017 to 170.2 million last year.
Profit-wise.
Yeah, profits.
Profit.
So if you add it all up over that 6-year period, GW has made over £750 million profit.
And yet more price rises.
More price rises.
Honestly, it's just, I wish they'd just give her a break, like just, we all like the hobby. We all going to continuously buy it. Like, why are they doing this?
Well, that's why, because they know we'll still buy it.
I guess you're right.
I mean, we'll come on to this in a little bit, but everybody has a point where they won't be squeezed anymore, and you just say that's enough.
And I think, obviously we're getting on there, but I think we're getting to that point relatively close, especially with other methods coming out like 3D printing and whatnot.
Well, I think they're not the only show in town, are they?
No, not anymore. Which is a good thing. We need competition.
Yes,
to bring down prices.
Desperately need competition.
But I mean, is this GW greed? Yes, personally, and just we've got more stats for this basically. But basically, just to help kind of piece this little puzzle together that we've kind of got here, we've got like the USA inflation rates compared to those years as well. So the US inflation rate from 2017 was 2.10%.
Yeah, 2.1%.
So
and GW went up by
GW raised their prices by 3%.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, look, I get as a corporation, they may need to increase their profit margins or whatever. Well, not the profit margins. They need to increase their prices to match inflation to cover their bills.
Yeah, if inflation drives costs up, you get inflation in your supply chain, then you have to pass that on to your customers. That's normal.
We see that in all industries. It isn't just related to GW. It's in industry. But what GW've done is they've increased it more than inflation.
Yes.
So they're looking for more of a profit.
Yes.
In their
pointed out 2017 2.1% inflation and 3% GW price increases, and that trend has continued in the last
every year.
Yeah, in 6 years of inflation, GW has had an above inflation price increase 4 out of those 6 years.
It's just it's a money making machine. That's what they're going for. So so what 2023 the inflation for USA was 3.4%, and then GW raised their prices by 5%.
Yeah.
So again, like the difference is 1.6% in more profit is effectively what it is. They're getting 1.6% more profit.
Yes. So I mean, they've done other things to increase their profits. Like you can't treble your profits by doing that, but it has certainly helped them increase their profits. Yeah.
It's just
and because they know we're suckers and we will still buy.
We will. Are we? But I mean, obviously, but we'll get into it later. But like, who is really buying out stuff from GW directly? You know, and we'll show you later where you can get more stuff from, which a lot of people out there probably already know where to get cheaper models from. But it's just, I just give her a break. Like they're not making anything easier. They're raising prices, codex prices as well that we'll get into later. They're going through the roof.
Yeah, very expensive.
It's just crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
You've got a really good point you raised here in terms of are we buying plastic or buying points?
Oh my god, what is it? Right? Are we buying the plastic? Because if you look at the plastic, it doesn't make sense. Or are we buying points? I personally think that we're just buying points set by GW. Or they look at a box and like, okay, how much realistically would someone pay for this model?
Yes.
Right? I mean, I've got a really good example here of basically the neck ones flayed. We've talked about them before, but they're a really good example to bring up. The flayed ones unit, you get 5 models in this squad or in this box. It's £32.50 for 5 models. So that's £6.50 per
little man.
I want a little. Yeah. It's the size of this paint pot. Yeah, that's effectively how much it is, and it's
a tiny amount.
This is heavier than plastic, right? So £6.50 per model. So then you look at like another box set. So like the Cadian troop, troops, the shock troop squad. You get 10 plastic models in that box, and that costs you £30. So that's £3 per little model. Help me here, Dan. Help me, Dan.
I know.
I don't understand.
Yeah, they are based. You are right. It's not like buying milk, where
you buy for how much you get.
Yeah, it's very massively. You're not buying by weight of plastic, as you say. It massively varies, and it feels like a lot of the time it's priced at what they think they can get away with, rather than what's good for the consumer.
Yeah, and I'm just surprised that they just don't change them very often. Like, I mean, I don't remember the last time there was a sale on GW.
They just don't do it.
Like you look on a few other websites, I mean, it's a completely different industry, of course, but like clothing side of things, they have sales all the time. New seasons come around.
Yeah,
they want to shift the old product, bring in new stuff. That typically tends to happen with GW as well. They get more models in. I mean, obviously, Primaris sort of stuff kind of comes in. New Necron Warriors kind of come in. It's like, don't you want to sell your old stuff to bring in the new stuff kind of thing? And
there have been rumours for a while that GW is so opposed to sales because it feels it would devalue its product, that if they overproduce something, which they often do, they will bury it. Like, they'll literally send it to the trash rather than
sell it on or sell it cheaper,
rather than discount
to flood the market kind of thing. It's just, we want it. We want to play, because again, there's a lot of people out there who aren't really there for the model aspect or like the painting aspect. They just want to play it. So they just want the models in it, whatever form, cheap or expensive, whatever, just to play the game.
Well, and that's where I think GW's challenge lies in the future if they keep pushing this pricing.
Yeah.
But before we move on to that, let's talk a little bit about, you just touched on it there in terms of codexes.
Oh, cool. Well, before we get on to that as well, sorry, there's a I really wanted to mention it. There's a little story.
Oh, yes, beg your pardon, yeah.
No, it's just, I remember when I was must have been about 14, 15 years old or something like that. I remember going into the shop and I was like looking, I was kind of not so much starting my hobby, but I was like still collecting Space Marines at the time. And I was like, what do I need next? And I walked in the shop and then they were like, okay, so what do you have? What are you collecting? I was obviously Space Marines, yada, yada. I was like, I'm really interested in kind of building up an army to play on the tabletop. And they're like, all right, do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? And I was like, I'm blown back. I was like, I don't know what any of those are. I don't know what I want. And he goes, oh, well, you'll need a captain. And I was like, oh, right. And he goes, you need someone to lead your army. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, that makes sense. Sure. He picks up a little box of this captain with a power fist. I was looking at it and I was like, oh, okay, he looks cool. And then I looked at another box and then I was like, well, that box looks also very cool. It's like a squad of Space Marines for like, I don't know, at the time, the price was probably like 20 quid or something. Yeah. 25 quid. And I was like, cool, that looks good. Like 5 models, I'll take that because I like to paint them, like to play them, whatever. I wasn't really bothered about like the structure of your army.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you need this one box. And inside the box, it was the box itself was the same size as the box of the Space Marines.
Yes.
And I was just like, right, but there was only one guy in the middle holding the power fist and then like a bolter. My mom was looking at it like, well, why is this 20 quid and this other box 25 when the difference is 4 models between them? And the guy was like, you could see the cogs working, like the sales pitch was trying to come in and be like trying to justify it, and he was like, oh, but it's the model, like, he looks so cool, doesn't he? He's got the power face, he's got the butt. And my mom was like, yeah, but the other ones have guns too and chainsaws as well, like there's no big difference. And I was just sitting there like, at that time it didn't really sink in, and I was just like, child me, I was like, power fist is cool. Get me the power fist. Yeah. So my mom bought me it and I got back, and normally my Saturday nights were me just spending like hours building it and painting it, but I was done within an hour because I only had one model.
Yeah.
And I think young me at that point then clicked. I was like, we've spent the same amount of money for such fewer models, and I was like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a bit like getting a video game and then completing it in like half a day.
Yeah.
You're like,
is that it?
Yeah.
I spent 60 quid.
Yeah, I spent 60 quid on this. And I think it's I find it very difficult for them to justify what they charge for the character models, because the way they are made now and designed and sculpted, some of the character models have more detail on them than the standard troops, which you expect, but not to justify that price increase.
Not at all. And I mean, I looked online as well, just kind of gauge on what other people were saying, and no one had a solid answer. No one was like, oh, it's this particular thing. Everyone was like, it's pure speculation. Like, it's pure just like GW, have a dartboard, 25.
It's and I think that's what we're looking at with price increases, is they will, until they, like, as much as there is salt on about this online, they are used to that. They've had we're one of the most salty fan bases in any franchise.
Us?
Yeah.
Warhammer?
Yeah.
Dan, please.
But if the data shows that sales and profits are still going up, then
why would they stop?
Why would you change your practice?
I mean, do you reckon they're just worried for 3D printing eventually kicking off? Because it's already coming out. I mean, obviously, if you have access to a 3D printer, it changes what you can and can't print.
Yes.
Like legit. Like, obviously, we've got a friend who has a 3D printer, and I mean, we go to him for a lot of things. I mean, I just asked for 2 Norm emissaries because I didn't want to buy 2 more. I picked it up cheap via a friend. But obviously, looking online, the meta's like running 3 of them.
Oh,
and
right,
I was
right.
Well, I don't want to spend another 120 quid on 2 models just for a meta unit that'll probably not remain the meta.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? It's not my main faction. I'm probably not ever going to take them into a tournament. Just print me them.
Yes, I think so. And I mean, in terms of whether GW has is trying to squeeze as much out before the party's over, I don't think so.
You reckon?
I just don't think they've come up with a strategy yet. I think they're just trying to pretend that 3D printing doesn't exist.
You reckon?
Well, their strategy is to try and stop people that they've got a whole small army of people who they pay to go and stomp on 3D printers who are printing models that are too close to their models.
True.
And that is their strategy at the moment.
Yeah.
And again, it comes back to the date, like their data is showing, right, year on year, our sales and profits are still growing.
Yeah.
So why would you worry about something that they can't see impacting their business?
So do you reckon they'll only change it once the impact, like the profit margin actually is impacted?
Yeah.
Do you reckon there'll just be lots of cease and desists?
That's all. I mean, that's basically what it is at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's impossible to do. It's like whack-a-mole. Like you put a cease and desist on a 3D printer, and they just change the names of the models, and they're back up within 24 hours.
Well, yeah, because so if ever you're looking for, if you have a 3D printer, you'll probably know the pain. But whenever you're searching for a particular model on like these free 3D website model places, when you search the model name, it's never called what you're looking for.
No,
it's always changed because of GW that you can't.
Yeah,
use
obviously,
the same name.
there are those names like trademarks and stuff, which is fair enough. That's GW's IP. Yeah, it's. But if you search for like Necron Overlord, something will come up there with a different name. That
Robot Lord.
Yeah, that looks very
like
similar to a Necron Overlord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's
looks really good as well. Some of the models out there are absolutely banging.
Yes. I think we'll cover that in a little bit more detail further on. Let's talk a bit. We've covered plastic. We'll talk about resin in a bit, but let's talk about codexes.
Codexes. What to talk about with codexes? Like, why are they so high?
I mean, well,
why are the prices so high? It's a book.
Yeah.
I get so frustrated with it because again, I think I'm more annoyed at the. Well, actually, no. I think over the years I was in the past like, okay, cool, 25 quid, 30 quid for a codex. Sure, a lot of work went into it. You know, it looks great. It looks good on the shelf, yada yada. But nowadays, that we've got a much better app that they kind of taunted us with the indexes. How like we've mentioned in the previous podcasts in the past, where it's like I love sitting there mid game playing, I don't know, an orc player who I don't know what an orc player can and can't do. Yeah. So whilst they're doing their movement, they're shooting, whatever, I'm sitting there using the app, using the index, being like, all right, cool, so this is what their units they've got, this is what the units can do.
Yeah.
That was so good.
It gave us so much more insight into other factions, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and now that the codexes are coming out, they're locked behind this paywall. You need to buy a codex to get a code to unlock that. I hate it. I think it's so frustrating for a player wanting to learn. It's like you're gatekeeping the knowledge.
We've talked about this before, but it wouldn't be if you could buy a digital code for codex for a tenner or 20 quid.
Honestly,
having to buy a codex for what are they now, 40 quid, and they're going up again.
Yep,
it's
going up more. Yep, and
£60 for a
limited edition one. Oh, 60 quid. Shut the fuck up. Fucking stupid. Hate it. Yeah, 60. I mean, look. I'm flabbergasted because I'm so frustrated with like how much money it is.
It is. I mean, but I do love a code. I love to be a codex. I do love a codex. But again, it will get to the point where if they just keep, if the price keeps increasing at some point, you can't justify it anymore, can you?
Not at all. I mean, like say, we'll talk about it later on, but I mean, I use other sources all the time just to get my information, especially when I'm looking for another army, where I'm just like, oh, what do they do? I always go on like Wikipedia or something like that just to get that info because it's so easy and useful. But I mean, even just like going back to the app itself and with the codexes, I hate how you do have to buy the codex to get the app because that limits the second-handness of your codexes. So a lot of people want the app, the code for the app. So buying a second-hand codex, you run the risk of that app that code already being used. So you're kind of already a bit buggered because the app makes so much sense because they make so many changes to the codexes later down the line.
Yes.
That having the access to the app is just unreal because any changes they make, well, you're going to get a live up-to-date feed.
Unless you are a super casual player who doesn't care, then your codex is likely to be out of date very, very quickly.
So,
very often they're actually the points values in the codexes are wrong by the time the codex is published. So if you are a super casual player that doesn't mind that, then you can probably pick up codex. I was going to say a codex on the cheap, but they look like they're going for about 20, 25 quid if the code's already been used. Still, it's not
bad.
Cheap,
for a casual player who just wants the codex to kind of get themselves started, not too bad. For a majority of players, I maybe want to say, who are wanting to play the game with up-to-date rules, probably not the best thing for them.
I mean, the 9th edition codexes had a digital version, but it was basically just a PDF, and nobody cared because the app was rubbish. And all
the app was awful at the time.
It didn't matter.
Couldn't search properly.
So if someone had used the code in your Necro codex,
at that time during 9th, the app itself was it was all they had the wrong information on. So you couldn't give some units who were allowed certain weapons. You couldn't give them that profile because the app wasn't capable of doing it. So I think at the time everyone was like, well, I'm not using the app. Like that's broken basically. But they did revamp it very nicely, and I think that's what's annoyed me more. They've got a very good app right now.
It is good, fair play.
And it's just they're charging for it, which is annoying. Like this is actually the first time I'll say it. I just wish that they had a subscription for the codexes, a reasonable price before anyone complains, but a reasonable price for a subscription to unlock all of the codexes.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. Like you could do it like Warhammer Plus Premium or something. Pay an extra £10 a month and you get all the codexes.
Let's say it was £10 a month for all the codexes. Then basically you have up-to-date rules of all the factions that are out there. So how many factions are out there? Like
20, 27, 28, something like that, yeah.
So imagine buying all them codexes, 27 times 30, whatever. I'm not going to do the math, can't do math. But that's how much it's going to be. So £10 for the year.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at, if you bought all those codexes brand new, you're looking at about 1,500 quid.
Yeah, there we go. And then you're comparing that to a subscription model of £10 a month, where you have all access to all those things, allowing you to then be like, oh, I'll tell you what, I've got 3 armies that I'm not committed to 2 of them, I'm only committed to 1 of them. Well, I don't want to buy £60 worth of books. Yeah. Let me just got the app subscription. Now when I'm playing, I know what other people are using, what I'm using. If I'm questioning a rule, tell you what, you continue with your rule, let me search on the app.
Yes, I can see exactly what you...
just to make sure no one's getting...
That is a brilliant point because on the competitive scene, there is a small minority still that bend the rules or, in my case, just
get it wrong.
Them.
Just simply get it wrong.
There's an awful lot of people that just get them wrong.
Yeah.
But the ability to sense check all of that for you while you're, without slowing the game down will be amazing.
So much
really
better.
Good.
So much better.
And I think from also competitive play, a lot about becoming a good competitive player is knowing what your opponent can do.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the only way you can do that at the moment is to get the reps in, like you've just got to keep playing games against those opponents. If you had the information, it's not quite a substitute for playing games against somebody, but
of course,
it's a step in that direction, isn't it?
Exactly. It's just like, you maybe have like a debrief after you get home and you're like, tell you what, like, how did that do so much damage? I'll have a quick little look.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. Have a little look and it's great. So, I mean, there are other ways of doing it, but the app itself is, again, they've got a good app. I will say it's easily searchable. You find all the nice rules on there as well. They've just added a couple of new features on there with the export options and where you can see your list in a more easier, digestible way. They've made some good steps towards it. So I think that's why I'm more annoyed that they've got something good, but they're not utilizing it to effectively make more profit. Yeah, because they could make more money from it.
Yeah, they need to. They're making baby steps towards digitization, but this is 2024. They should have been digitized for about 10 years by now. A lot of other game systems, which we'll talk about later, but there are other game systems that are almost fully digitized now, and some of them where the rules are free.
Yeah, exactly.
But despite the fact that these game systems exist out there, are any of them really able to compete against GW?
It's hard, isn't it? Like, I mean, game systems wise, I mean, we've got Bolt Action, the Star Wars one.
Yeah, the Star Wars Bolt Action. There's the Grave games, Frostgrave and Stargrave. Yeah.
And the issue is that these are all really good systems.
Yes,
like people love them. I mean, there's I lost train of thought on that one, but there's so many good systems out there that they are good, but there's just not enough of people to make it a competible market for GW.
Yeah, I think it becomes like a vicious cycle or self-fulfilling cycle, because when you get into, if you are like, I want to get into tabletop gaming,
Yeah.
or you start playing Warhammer and you decide this isn't quite. I like the concept, but I don't like the mechanics.
Yes.
Trying to find other people to play other game systems can be quite difficult.
Yeah, it is hard.
A good local gaming club will have a broad selection. So I know we keep talking about them, but we're very blessed to have the Wildlings, West Allotment Wildlings up the road from us. And they, I had a game of a system called Conquest, The Last Argument of Kings, which is like a fantasy type of tabletop game. And it's just it's a you go I go system, a bit like Bolt Action. It's a much more interactive system than 40k is, but unless you've got a club there where somebody is really pushing it hard, like Daryl does at that club, then it's taken him years, but he's built up like a small core of people that love that game.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got that, everyone just migrates towards. It's like gravity, isn't it? You know, GW is just the biggest planet in that solar system, and everybody gets
shout the loudest, so they get more traction at the end of the day. I mean, what's the best ways of finding these kind of communities? I mean, obviously for me, from my experience, really just if you search on Facebook, Reddit's a good one as well. Yeah. Reddit's got a really good community. Because once you get into Reddit, you can kind of just ask for a Discord, because there's most likely Discords that are there. They're a lot easier to get in touch with people. So if you are looking to get into any of these kind of systems, Discords, Reddits, Facebook's a nice shout. Anything from you?
No, I mean, just simply, or definitely your local gaming clubs. Most gaming clubs will play different systems.
Like Geek Retreat and such, is it? Or like Traveler Man?
You could go to those shops and play and some of those shops will have nights for that kind of specific game nights. But also your actual gaming clubs will often have people. They're usually tucked in a corner somewhere, but there will be people playing different game systems. So I used to, when the first game club I went to in Newcastle, there was like a couple of tables of playing, might have been playing Fantasy or Sigmar, 80% playing 40k, and then in the corner there might be a couple of guys having a great time playing Bolt Action. So they will be there.
Nice.
But you will. The trade-off is that you have a smaller player base, but it's one of those things. If you don't start, then it never happens.
Yeah. One of the new ones actually that's just came out is the Halo one.
I've seen the Halo miniatures.
I'm looking. It's just came out 2 weeks ago. I think I'm going to try and pick it up as well, because you got the three factions. I think you got the Covenant. I think the Brutes and obviously the Marines. I think the models just look classic.
The models look I mean, obviously you're a massive Halo fan.
Yes.
But the models do look really nice.
Yeah.
There's a Fallout one that's just come out where the models look quite tasty as well. But also those models for both of those systems, the minis are a lot cheaper.
That's what I like about them. Yeah, I want them.
What you'll often find, and it comes back to these guys feel that they can make a healthy profit. And a lot of these alternative games, the mechanics are set up whereas the rules are either free or quite cheap, and the idea is that they make their money selling the minis. So if they can sell their minis for, let's say, 50% of the cost of GW or less, then that shows you how expensive GW is.
Going back to the pricing side of things, it's like what are we actually buying? It's obviously it must be the brand. Obviously, GW must, again, as we mentioned before, they must know that we will spend the money on their brand, so they will just whack up the prices.
Well, they've leaned into being the premium brand in the hobby space, but you hit the nail on the head earlier in terms of competition. There simply isn't enough competition to stop them squeezing the fan base.
It's a shame because, again, there are other ones out there that are fantastic. There's just not enough of them. To pose a big threat to GW. I'd almost argue the biggest competition they've got is 3D printers. That's the only one that's going to be on the rise constantly.
Yes, I agree. I think the only one that I think might be a reasonable contender, and we'll just have to wait and see, is this new system by Mini Wargaming Dave.
Yes.
I'm trying to think what it's called. Ravaged Star, isn't it?
I think that rings a bell there.
That's like from what I've seen of it, it looks like a much more interactive version of 40k. It's set in its own universe.
Yeah.
It's not, but they've done a couple of Kickstarters and they've like raised millions already.
Really?
Yeah. So.
It's still active, the Kickstarter.
As far as I'm aware, I think there's definitely stuff that is live at the moment that you can invest in. Yes,
I like his stuff. To be fair, I
mean, I'm a big fan of Mini Wargaming Dave.
I've watched them since I was since I've basically got back in the hobby when I was younger as well.
Yeah,
a really good channel.
So if you haven't checked it out, go and have a look on YouTube for Ravaged Star or elsewhere. But it's worth having a look at, definitely.
I'll take a look.
But beyond that, it definitely, as you said, the biggest challenger, if you like, to GW's ongoing success or to our wallet, for our money, is 3D printing.
3D printing. It's just it's. I mean, if you look at the 3D printers that are out there now, it's just night and day from when they first started. Like, I remember going past in town, like, a window of all these 3D printers, and like they just looked so old. Like these really just manual robotic things that like just look awful. And you look at these new ones now, they've got they literally text you when the 3D print's done. Yeah. Text you when it thinks it's messed up, which I think is hilarious. Like obviously one of our friends has it, and he says that like he was at work one day working away, and he gets a little text saying, "Yeah, I think I fucked up." it's like he turns on the camera that's then there, and the sculpt's just like this, and he's like, "Yeah, stop! You've definitely messed up." So basically, you can like stop it from his app to basically be like, "Oh well, look, don't waste any more resin. Stop you right now, and I'll come back and fix you later on." And I think just so much better.
I mean, there's been a lot of talk. We're not going to get back into this, but there's been a lot of talk in the hobby recently about people saying they're going to stop buying from GW for other reasons, and saying that 3D printer goes burr is what they always put. and
Understandable, great meme.
3D printing it requires quite a high skill level. It's quite a high.
It takes time. Yeah, it takes time and patience. I think a lot of prints can go wrong. A lot of the times, and you've got to get like the leveling right. There's a couple of self-level ones out there which are just crazy money.
They're getting better. I think we're getting close to idiot proof, which is what it needs to be for like me to buy one. But I was thinking about it because one of our good friends, Dan, has got one, and I was talking to him when he started 3D printing stuff for us. I was like, "This is amazing." Yeah, and I was like, "I think I'm going to get one of these." And I asked him loads of questions, and he was like, "Look, this is how it works. This is all the barriers to it. This is what you need to be able to do." And some of it, it involves like the resin itself isn't can be there are a lot of toxicities involved in that process, a lot of noxious chemicals and things like that.
Got to cure it and such as well. It's like the peeled pink. It's not just like you buy a print, you put it on the printer, you hit go. In 6 hours, it's done. You take it off and you're ready to go. No, there's a lot more steps involved.
So, and he kind of talked me out of it in a nice way. But the generation that like you say, the new ones that are coming out now that he's looking at, he's like, this is actually really good.
Yeah. Again, I think you made a very good point. They need to make them idiot proof so that anyone can just pick them up and, as I just said, pick it up, whack it in, and press go, basically.
And that whole curing process needs to get from I think we're a few years off that, but I think eventually it'll just be integrated.
Yeah.
So instead of you getting the model and then you having to go through the curing process, the machine will take care of it.
The light will turn on.
It'll just spit the model out at the end when it's ready.
Little conveyor belt. Just print them off. Yeah, that would be really good. So we're quite far away from it. And again, that's probably why GW are raising their prices, because they know this information.
I think they know that they can raise the prices, but until at the moment, year on year, GW pretty much almost year on year, GW sales and profits increase. Yeah, and until 3D printing actually puts a dent in that, where they level off or they actually go into decline. Yeah, I can't see them see them worrying about it too much.
I mean, what was that funny story that it was published in White Dwarf where someone had an entire army built and painted, looked amazing, and then the showcased it in, I think it was White Dwarf. Yes. But it turns out that they use that technique,
China
molding?
Cast. It was China Cast, yeah. Right? So for those of you who don't, so China Cast is 3D printing, but it is basically somebody in China has basically copied all of the GW models. Yeah. And they will cast them in resin for you for a fraction of the price. Yeah,
it's good. Like if you're looking for some cheap models, just to play it. And look, I think they're very brittle as well, right? They will probably break based on how.
It depends on the quality of the resin and how old it is and things like that, how it's been looked after. That's the other thing about resin versus plastic. It's also harder to get the paint off without damaging a resin model if you want to strip the paint, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there are definitely downsides to resin and 3D printing and China casting. But our experiences have been largely driven through our friend Dan, but I would say they've been positive.
Pretty good. Yeah, I think he's nailed how to kind of basically do
he's very good at it.
He's very good at the 3D printing elements, I think. So I think we're kind of blessed to have him because he's printing off a lot of our terrain, saved us a lot of money when it comes to terrain.
That was my kind of gateway into it, and yours I think as well, wasn't it? It was terrain. He's like, like he printed you off, was it some Necron terrain?
Just some lovely stuff. Just some little terrain bits for some nice, just some scenic bits really for the Necrons, because obviously they're just relatively easy as well. There's the little big pylons, which are really nice.
Look nice. And you've done bases as well, I think.
All my Necrons are based with the 3D one, because I was a bit unsure on how to base at the time, so I was like, just base 3D print me some bases, please,
Nice.
and stuck them on and sprayed them silver. Bit of dry brushing and all done.
Basically. It really helped me get a table full of terrain because, like you said, when you start buying it from GW, it's kind of expensive, and once you get into, as my son developed in the hobby and we went from like sort of 500 points to 1,000 points and then up to 2,000 points, you need a lot of terrain because if you haven't got it, there's just too much line of sight and it skews the game too much.
It's true.
But trying to. So in that respect, like the ability, it was going to cost me like nearly 200 quid. I think I worked it out to fill a table with GW terrain, and
it's crazy.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And then
considering all the other things you have to purchase as well.
Well, yeah, and I think Dan did it for like 40 or 50 quid. All
yeah,
in or something like
that's
that.
it. Yeah,
and he, I think I bought him like a gift voucher to say thank you as well, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's less than all in. It's like less than half the price.
Yeah.
So if you've got a friend that will do that for you, and there also are 3D printers who run like businesses 3D printing.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's still significantly cheaper than Games Workshop.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
It definitely is. I mean, speaking about how we can kind of save money, I mean, a 3D printer has saved us, as we just mentioned, a lot of money. So if you do have a friend who has a 3D printer, they'll most likely want to just continuously use their printer. So they'll be pretty happy with them. With you,
yeah. I mean,
just give them a bit of dollar for the resin, of course.
I think that's the thing is you've got to look after them. If don't take the mickey out of your mates if they are 3D printing for you. Like, don't say, can you print me an entire Gene Stealer Cults army or something? Nobody. It's a big investment of somebody's time, as even if they are an expert in it, and all the things like talk about like the curing and models and stuff like that. So
it takes time.
Yeah, we tend to pick our battles or our moments what we want to get 3D printed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And sometimes, like we've talked about this before, like the Transcendent Catan, which is like comes with like a you can only buy it with the
obelisk or something like that. Is it?
Yeah.
So it's like a 100 odd quid model that you can get basically either one model, which is like the opened obelisk with the Transcendent Catan in the middle, or the closed one and the Transcendent Catan on its side. So you've got to buy like 110, 120 quid or something like that for the this thing that you're only going to use.
You're only going to use the little model.
One, the other one's awful. Don't run that.
It's too big to fit on a table, really, isn't
it? It is. It's massive as well. But
I mean, the only other thing I'd say about resin is if you're buying resin from people you don't know, is it can depend on the quality.
Yes.
So I got some dark Eldar Scourges, which are the creatures with the big wings.
Right.
They were given to me actually, so I'm not complaining about that. But
free stuff, and you still complain.
Yeah, well, but the resin the guide uses obviously wasn't the best quality, and they were very brittle. So if you pick them up, the wing snaps off.
See, that's not what you want as well.
No, whereas
especially if you spend time painting it as well. Then,
exactly. It's a pain in the arse. But prints from Prince and Dan are always top notch. I had no problems with them.
Nah, same.
But yeah, moving on, secondhand market. Have you dipped your toe in there at all?
You know what? I have, and I just didn't like it personally. Yeah. It's like, look, you get some really good models that are really cheap, thumbs up across the board. But I was really invested in kind of the painting element side of things. Mm-hmm. So when I got these secondhand models that were, I mean, again, depends on where you search, and depends on what you buy off eBay, because you can buy some 3D, some secondhand ones that are decent and unpainted, but if you get the ones that are painted, I just find them really hard to strip the paint and redo them myself. So I'm just
it's tricky because there's such demand, because GW's prices are so high. Then what happens is demand fuels pricing in the secondhand market. So secondhand prices, when you think about other prices for secondhand goods, like if you had a computer for 2 years, I know there's computers evolve, etc. But say you had a PC for 2 years and then sold it, you'd be lucky if you got half your money back. Mm-hmm. Whereas Warhammer, the price of the minis tend to stay in the 60-70% kind of bracket.
I would say so. Yeah.
So, I've seen people before that have sold at like 70% discount to GW prices, which is basically not very much cheaper than buying them new from, an Element Games or a local gaming store.
Yeah. I think that's where I prefer to go. Just go to those, Element Games. Yeah. I mean, Element Games, I go there all the time. So it's always like, what, a 10 to 15%?
Yeah. You can get up to 20% from a local gaming store discount, which is good.
It's obviously
it's straight out of the box.
Again, it goes back to what I was saying before. Like, why buy from GW directly?
Yeah,
like it just doesn't really make too much sense to me. Especially when you can get it cheaper. Especially when you go to like Traveling Man, which again is already your place in town where you can so
well, that's a good question I would like to ask you then is when was the last time you actually bought something from GW, like minis?
So the only time it was about 5 months ago now when they did a special release for the limited orders that they do for the Necron Locust Lords.
Yes, so that's Forge. It's like a resin kit, I think, isn't it? That goes
exactly. I only bought them ones because I just like the uniqueness about them. And look, even to be fair, even when I bought them, I mean, crazy. It was like £9 for the conversion kit, which isn't too bad.
No, it's good.
But when you think about it, it's literally just 2 arms. so then when you justify it, it's like, well, hold on, £9 for 2 arms. It's like, is it justified? Because then straight away I went on the the 3D printing websites and they've got some really good conversion kits available. So I was like, I could have got that model for free, and then I stand it printed for like £2.
Dan owed me a couple of quid for something, and he's done exactly that. So, because I've got one Necron Locust Lord, and he was caked in paint. This is an example that you were talking about. So I got him second hand. He was caked in paint. Put him in some isopropyl alcohol to get the paint off. Paint's mostly come off all right, but I forgot that these arms are resin. So when I've gone and I just applied the toothbrush to remove the paint, his staff just went and dropped into like 4 pieces. Like, God damn it, that's the bit I need. You know?
It's like that's
what makes him a lord.
Exactly. Now he's just a Locust destroyer. I don't want this.
I messed up there.
It's hard.
But I just said to him, I was so annoyed. I just messaged him. I was like, I found this print. It's £3.
I want a refund. What have you done?
No, I didn't. Yeah, but so he was. I mean, the print's pretty good, and he's printed one off as a test, and it looks great.
Yeah.
So in those instances, why wouldn't you 3D print?
Yeah, because again, it's just like these special releases, although they whack on the name special kind of thing or limited order.
Yeah.
It's like, well, just. I mean, again, we're lucky to have a friend who has a 3D printer. So there's probably a lot of people out there who don't have that, but there are probably websites that can print.
Yeah. You can buy prints. There's also another good point you raised here is there are occasionally there's some really good tabletop sales type events. We've got one called Ad Hammer.
Oh yes, which
is
I did get an absolute banging deal from there actually.
You did, didn't you?
Again, I wasn't really up in the market for having a strip paint and models and such, but there was like a bag of warriors. It appeared to be I don't know if I told this story before.
No,
there was a bag.
You told me, but come on.
There's a bag of warriors on a table, and I walked up and I was like, had a brief count of them. They're all just sprayed black.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I can just dry brush the silver on top of that. That's super easy.
Happy days.
But they also had the green orbs, the green.
The rods that go in the guns. Yeah, the old school warriors.
If you look on eBay now, 5 of them are going for like £15. It's just because obviously GW don't print them anymore, make them, so they are becoming quite a limited edition. So when I looked at that, and I was like, well, even them 10 rods that I could see I'd already make £10 off that if I were to resell it. But I was like, oh, it's a thick bag, massive, and I was like, there's gonna be more stuff in there that I wasn't too sure. So I picked it up, give him a £5. £5 for a big bag of just Necron scrap, and I was like, that's what it was at the time, Necron scrap. But as I picked it up, I was like, this looks a lot heavier than what I initially thought it was going to be for the amount of warriors that I could initially see.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. I whacked in my bag, and when I got home, I unraveled the bag. Absolute steal of a stuff. There was 5 of those metal Praetorians, I think they were called. Some of them were missing the staffs, but there was one of them with basically one full one and then 5 without staffs. So all I need to do really is just 3D print some staffs. And I've got 5 metal Praetorians that are obviously no longer being sold anymore and are quite rare.
I've probably got some of the plastic Praetorian staffs because they come like in the same kit as a Lich Guard.
Is it the Praetorian? Is that those ones, or because these ones I've got are the ones from they went to they basically they don't do them anymore.
Oh, the Pariahs.
The Pariahs, that what they're called. Sorry, I get the name wrong.
No, I get them too. Everyone gets those two mixed up.
So because no one uses them anymore. No one uses the Praetorians either. So the Pariahs, because that was it, because they were from an old time where like they were like humans converted into Necrons, or like anti-psychers or something like that.
They disappeared from the Necron lore or the Necron codex. I want to say 5th. I think
that far back was it?
Yeah, I think it might have been.
So it was
I thought
they were in Dawn of War 1 and not Dawn of War 2, but they were in Dark Crusade.
So it would have been after 5th then, yeah. You're right. But yeah, I mean, that's still a bargain. And bargain. For someone like you that likes collecting those old metal models anyway, great.
Exactly. But that didn't end there. So there was also the spider, the Necron's metal scarab spider was there.
I love that.
I was like, this is a full one of these. I was like, this is going for £30 on eBay. I've got it just behind you actually over there. Unreal model. And I was like, this is a steal as well.
Yeah.
And then the Necron warriors that were inside there wasn't just 10, it was 20 of them. So then I managed to, I already had 80 of them, so I didn't want any more. So I sold them for like 20 quid. And I was like, because they sell for like 32 quid now. So I was like, someone have them for 20 quid. Nice. They're all built, they're all painted, they're all fine. I was like, here's 20 warriors. So
and that's the other thing as well, is if you are if you're coming in at ground zero to build an army, you can buy complete armies at better discounts, often more than 50%.
Because people are just looking to shift them, just to move on.
Yeah, it's harder to shift a bigger army. And also, if you are buying stuff that are either models where there's a lot of them out there in the market, like Necron Warriors, or models that are not meta, you can often get them at a better discount as well, can't you?
You definitely can.
But you do have to be aware. I've fallen foul, so I bought a bunch of Necrons before I put myself on my buying ban before Christmas. I bought a bunch of Necron
just to get your fix. You're like, I need to buy them all.
I did. I mean, it looked like a really good deal. It was like 200 quid, and there was loads of models in there. That included 10 Lich Guard, 10 Immortals with the Tesla, and 6 Wraiths. So I've now got 18 Wraiths.
Sounds like a meta chase, that.
You does a bit, yeah. But they're all on the wrong size bases. So the models are the right models.
Yeah.
They've been in the range for a while, but each of them is on one base size that's too small, because obviously over time GW's increased the base size. So the Wraiths, for example, I think they're on 32 mil, and they should be on 40 or 50.
It's rebasing. I don't know if anyone's done it much at home, but it's the worst, especially when they've been glued with a lot of glue. Trying to Necron Warriors.
I can't get them off. I've looked at videos of like, you could just get your craft knife in under the feet.
Get your scalp in, just
cut your bollocks.
It's not.
There's
that
no
easy.
way that's happening.
Like I use my clips, and the clips just deform the foot. So when you come to re-glue them, it's just they're absolutely wobbly and just absolute fail. It's not easy. Trying
to wedge a craft knife. I'm a clumsy person at the best of times. Me trying to wedge a craft knife under a base is only going to end up one way. Just like me losing
just
a
like
finger.
this. Like, why is it not working very well? It's not good.
Doing the next podcast with an iPad.
The one, your glasses are broken. You went straight through. No protection, these boys.
You've got to be aware of that. But I mean, there are ways around that as well. So our friend Dan's come to me rescue, and he's like, actually, I can print. There's 3D prints for base extenders. So you just print two halves and just clip it onto the existing base, and it makes it the right size. And then I can base them properly. So there are always ways around these things. But if there is usually a trade-off between cheaper and the amount of time you have to do to get the models to right, if you like.
Playable, tabletop ready kind of thing. If that's the right word.
So will you still be buying from GW with this price increase?
Probably not. Like
I had enough.
I haven't for 5 months, and that was because of the limited order. I don't remember the last time I bought models directly. I think the last time actually might have been. Because again, I mean, I don't barely go in the shop either. I don't buy anything from there. I like my paints, but again, I get them from like Traveling Man, which is just generally cheaper. Brushes wise, I don't buy any of the brushes from GW. They're not super pricey either. And for the price, I feel like they break too easy because maybe I don't maintain them very well.
I just don't think they're very good, those synthetic brushes. The last things I bought would have been last year. Would have been a couple of bits to flesh out my. My Jakari, my Dark Eldar, just because I was desperate and couldn't wait. But over 90% of my purchases for about the past year or so have been second-hand or 3D prints. Yeah, or
just purchase them from friends, basically, for me. It's buying them off friends to get their ones. But buying from GW, I just don't. Just Element Games, another local store that's just doing them for cheaper.
I think I can understand from... when you are new to the hobby, I can understand that you will buy from Games Workshop or buy from the Warhammer shop because that's the only shop show in town.
And maybe you need that extra knowledge because you look on like Element Games. Obviously, we know now what we're looking for. So we go in them stores and we're like, all right, I know I need this kind of thing. And I remember going into Traveling Man once, and it must have been during the 8th edition one where it was like the red, white, and black books that you had. And I went in. And I was kind of slowly getting back into the hobby, and I was like, I wouldn't mind knowing what the rules are for it. So I went to go buy it, walked in, and I picked it up, and I was like, this looks good. I think this is the right one. And it looked smaller. The book looked like a field manual kind of thing. Yeah. And I was a bit unsure. So I went up and I was like, is this like the latest one? Didn't have a Scooby. Person was just like, I don't know the stuff. So I was like, is it the latest rules? Is it not? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, well, what does this book do? They're like, I've got no idea. So although these stores are good and cheaper, they still didn't have the knowledge that I needed to
the likes
get
of
it.
Travelling Man is an interesting one because they're fundamentally a comic book store, but they also sell Warhammer.
Yep.
And if the guy behind the till is a comic book nerd rather than a Warhammer nerd, then they're not going to be able to answer your questions.
Nah.
A dedicated local gaming store like say Bay Games that we've got in North Tyneside here, they know all of that stuff inside out because it's their livelihood, isn't it? Stuff like
that is better if you're new to the hobby.
If you're new to the hobby, you need to make sure that you go into one of those stores rather than something like a comic. There's nothing wrong with Travelling Man. I love it. But
I was confused. So then I just didn't buy the book. And I went to JW and I was like, they answered all my questions because obviously they were the experts in it. And I did pay more for it, but I was like, at the time I was like, well, you've given me all the information I needed. That's fine. I'll buy it, kind of thing. So yeah, makes sense to me. But yeah, no, apart from that, I don't think I'll be buying anything more from GW for a very long time. But price-wise, it's always been the case. We always know it's always been going up, so nothing much more we can do about it.
No, and you know, there's nothing wrong. We have friends, for example, who like everything to be from GW, and like, you know, they don't believe that 3D printing is a valid thing, that they don't want to go down that route.
Yeah,
and that's perfectly acceptable as well. But I think if you're trying to save a couple of quid here and there in these tough times, and
I think it's worth a deeper conversation, because again, like, I wouldn't want to buy an entire 2K list of army and then be like, oh, actually, they're really bad, I don't like them. I've bought them all, I've painted them all, and I spent a lot of money on them. I'd rather use some 3D alternatives to test them out, and then maybe buy the real shebang if I want to.
Yeah, and the reality is, as we talked about in terms of the massive profits of GW, is that us printing, 3D printing or secondhand buying or whatever or buying from a third party isn't impacting them in the slightest.
Clearly not.
No,
by their profit margins going up. So
don't feel guilty about it, or that you owe them anything. You probably, if you've been in the hobby for any amount of years, you've probably more than given them enough already.
Yeah, for sure.
Good.
Spot on. Love it.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. Again, leave your comments and replies. Let us know what your thoughts are about buying official GW versus other parties. Do you just prefer to buy secondhand? Do you have a favourite third-party gaming store that you buy from instead? We're really interested to know. And in the meantime, other than that, thank you for watching and listening, and we'll see you soon.